Snowflinga, he is gone. And Birnbaum is hurt. Touchdown, Idaho. Birnbaum's down at the 33. Touchdown, Idaho. His back or his neck, but you can see pressure right up the middle. Tosi will come. Nofoinga comes up the middle, and there's just a big pressure that's put on by Maltosi, and then it's off to the races for Nofo. Huge turn of events. Cougars were looking like they were going to put it in the end zone or get 3 out of it. Touchdown like they did, Baylor did to UNLV. What an incredible finish to that football game a week ago.
We are the tribe from the north, we're brave and we're bold, defeating our rivals never gets old, making our way to the Big Sky Conference. Watch out, 'cause here comes the silver and gold. Whoa, whoa, this is Tubbs at the club for the Vandals of Idaho.
Welcome back, Tribe from the North, brave and bold, to the official, unofficial podcast of your Idaho Vandals and the Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brian Marceau, joined for this special edition of what I'm calling Tubbs of the Club After Dark, instant reaction to Idaho's Week 1 loss to WSU, which is, this is not a sad episode, guys, but joined by co-host Dallas Hammer. He came flying in from Pullman, just got back in Spokane. Dallas, how's it going?
It is fantastic. I am buzzing. I have never been so happy to be wrong in my entire life.
Yeah, look, we're not going to do any warm-up, guys. This is Around the Bar, brought to us by Hughes River. So, look, the broad strokes, guys. It was the spread for this game, depending on where you look, it was between 27.5 points and 29.5 points, obviously in favor of WSU. Idaho beat the hell out of the spread, 24-17. This game was competitive, wire to wire. I mean, Idaho drew first blood. Marcus Harris recovered a fumble, took it in for a touchdown. But, I mean, truly, this game was in doubt until the very last Idaho offensive play. Giovanni Mccoy threw a pick. But, look, this game was a kick-ass game. Both Dallas and I we correctly predicted Idaho would beat the spread, but our predictions were not for a clean looking game, like a pleasant beating of the spread. Idaho exceeded everyone's expectations. And look, Dallas, you were at the game. So look, we just went over close game. Look, I mean, in terms of Idaho, surprise, surprise, defense looked stronger broadly. Offensive line did have some questions, but look, just overall reaction. You were at the game. Tell us what the environment was. You're in the Idaho section. How does it feel with this game? Look, we had a couple guys online who were kind of writing us for not predicting an Idaho win or a close loss. But broadly, almost everyone I talked to, their hope was just please have this be a kind of close game. Please have this not be embarrassing, because we just – look, even Paul Petrino's good year in 2016, Idaho lost to WSU by 50. Back when we made an FBS Bowl. So like if that team got annihilated by WSU, then why would you expect anything different? But we got something different, Dallas. What was it like in the Idaho section?
So first I want to clarify a couple things. So Theo Lawson, formerly the Trib beat reporter, he's a Vandal grad. He's now working with Spokesman Review. He's doing their Gonzaga beat. He tweeted out today, the last time Idaho was in a one-score game against a Power 5 school was Virginia back in 2011. I was actually at that game. I got flown in as one of the student filmers. So we've played Wazoo twice since that game. And now Petrino's first game was, I believe, 42-0, awful bloodbath. Like you said, 2016, 56-6. And I feel a lot of the things that we saw with the Petrino tenure was just not showing up to the fight when it mattered the most. And that was the exact opposite of tonight's team. It was incredible. It felt like every single punch Wazoo threw, Idaho punched right back, took it right on the chin and fired back. And it was I don't even have the word for it. It was unbelievable to be there in that environment. And honestly, just watch as, I mean, that first drive, Wazoo moved the ball pretty well. 8 yards, 13 yards, 6 yards, incomplete pass, 16-yard rush, 10-yard rush, and then culminating in the fumble. Wazoo was moving really well on that first drive. And honestly, then that first 30 seconds, it felt like this could be a long night. Immediately punched the ball out. And from there, it felt like Idaho was trying to set the tone the whole game of, we are not your little brother. We are going to fight you every single inch of this game. And that's what it was. Unfortunately, it didn't end up Idaho's way in the final score, but I don't know a single Vandal that could be upset with tonight's performance.
No, absolutely. Look, you talked about essentially the character of the team, and that being one of the issues that in previous years of, like you said, their previous years, especially the Power 5 games, we preemptively rolled over, or talk about Eastern last year, preemptive rollover. This is a new era, and Jesus Christ, was this a way to ring it in? WSU heavily favored. We talked about on the episode, and we weren't wrong in the breakdown. WSU, in a lot of ways, it was a strength for WSU on weakness for Idaho matchup. But Idaho responded as well as you could hope. Absolutely. Anytime Idaho got punched in the mouth, they came right back up. Just look at the first quarter. Idaho's up 10-0 at the end of the first quarter. We had, like I said, Marcus Harris fumble recovery for a touchdown. We force Paul Moala forces a fumble shortly. Next possession for WSU. Paul Moala forces a fumble. Idaho ends up, we got bailed out with roughing the passer penalty that added 15 yards to a 5-yard pass. Giovanni Mccoy gets a 40-yard pass completion. Idaho ends up not being able to stick it in the end zone. We're up 10-0. WSU, the best they can do is claw back. They tie it. It's 10-10 at halftime. But again, it's a 29.5 point spread, and it's a 10-10 game. Now, Idaho had a real long time in between that initial drive I just talked about, where we ended up finishing with a field goal and having much offensive success, minus like a play or two that really took until the fourth quarter. Just the progression scoring of the game was Idaho scores 10 in the first quarter. WSU scores 10 in the second quarter. WSU scores 7 in the third quarter. WSU goes from down 10-0 to up 24-10. And then Idaho's offense starts clicking again. Idaho went for it on fourth down, eight times this game, 7 or 8 times. The number was 7 or 8. We can look at that in team stats in a second. But man, if you were one of the things we're curious about is we've seen and heard reports that the character of this team was changing, but we have to see that in the games, and boy, did we see it today.
So quick stat correction: 3 of 7 for Idaho from fourth down.
Okay, so we went 3 of 7. Only one of those was really a desperation. It's a Jason Eck. Jason Eck was playing to win this game, and he almost pulled it off.
Absolutely, and there was a one moment that was 4th and long that they probably could have punted and not given up a awful sack that gave Wazoo the ball back inside their own 35. But outside of that one mistake, Idaho didn't really mess anything up. There were no egregious turnovers. McCoy had a couple interceptions, but they weren't anything that was like direly terrible mistakes. Yeah, he pushed it and probably didn't need to make that throw. But at the end of the game, it felt like the kid got the ball in his hands and was immediately getting hit. There was just the offensive line was just not there. And we've talked about that before. We don't think the depth is quite there. There's not a ton of experience there. This is just a kind of a process that this is going to have to grow out.
And Jason Hallbeck was also out, and he's one of our starters.
Thank
and
you.
That's been an issue, is the depth, is the gap between second string O-line and first string.
Exactly. And so that's, when we're already down one guy in probably the thinnest group on the team, it definitely showed. But you look at the front seven of Wazoo, this is a legitimately very good defensive team. They're going to be in the top half of the Pac-12, probably in the top 3, honestly, from how physical their front seven is. They have a couple guys that are all Pac-12 on that defense in Jackson and Stone. Like they get to the quarterback, and that's what they did. If McCoy had a little bit more time, this might have been a completely different story. Idaho looked like they belonged on that field, and that's not something we've been able to say about Idaho playing up to really anybody in the top third of the Big Sky or above. We haven't been able to say that in years, and here we are, game one of Jason Eck's tenure, and they looked like they belonged. Yes, the depth is a problem because of the scholarship limitation between FCS and FBS, but they looked like they belonged. Other than the struggles with the offensive line, the corners were able to hold the receivers fairly well. With the cushion of death being gone, maybe that was the only change that was needed. The secondary actually competed with these guys really well.
Yeah, look, let's divide this into what went well and like where there's room to grow. So you just began what went well. I want to keep going on the corners for a second because that's been a target area. We've talked about it for years on the show. Is can Idaho get enough out of the secondary? And look, based off the guys who transferred in, based off who Rob Orich has to work with, based off what Rob Orich said on our show, their gamble was Idaho has enough talent to the secondary. The issue was scheme the last few years. Scheme, and then just like we already talked about, just the fight that you have on the team. And look, Cam Ward, 47 touchdown passes last year in the FCS. He goes to WSU. He has better skill position players to work with. He throws for 215 yards against Idaho, which Cam Ward finishes 40 for 25, 3 touchdowns, 215 yards, no picks. He also rushed for 33 total yards on five attempts. He gained 33 yards and lost 15 on sacks. But secondary overall, man, on our show, Orich talked about kind of the philosophy is first, don't get beat deep. And again, but don't just give the Bresky cushion of death. That's done, guys. We're not talking about that anymore other than this episode to allude to it being gone. Idaho was not getting killed with big plays. Idaho kept it in front of them. And honestly, man, that's the best performance I think I've ever seen out of Idaho secondary, at the very least, since joining the Big Sky. Huge credit to Stanley Franks for his work there too. But no, like Marcus Harris looked good. Matthias Bertram looked good. We have some converted wide receivers playing on the DB as well. Dallas, you'll probably have a couple more dudes to be to reference as well. But the secondary absolutely held. Jeremiah Salam, again, we can just say as stats almost the names of our secondary. Everyone played well against probably the best quarterback and best receiving core this team's going to see the entire season. We were not outclassed. Dallas did a shit ton of research to cover WSU for our last episode. One of the things he highlighted was athletic receivers who are all around 6'3". Marcus Harris is our only 6-foot corner. Doesn't matter. Dudes fought and clawed, did everything they had to make this a game. So I guess to me, man, of things that went well, the secondary itself might be the biggest revelation, because there's no way you can watch that game and not think, Jesus Christ, when we're playing Northern Arizona, like those guys are going to give us trouble now? No way, man. No way.
No, I mean, you could not, if you did not watch this game, just looking at the stats tell you what you need to know. Cam Ward, 25 of 40, 215 yards. Yes, he did have 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. His longest completion was 19 yards. There were no big plays that got away from Idaho. There was one like 24-yard rush from Nakia Watson. But outside of that, and then I think Ward had a scramble that was decent, but there were no 30, 40-yard chunk pass plays that we have typically seen in the Big Sky in the last few years. So that right off the bat was incredible. The front seven looks like they have completely reloaded. Love Trey Walker to pieces. It looks like they filled his spot with Favai and then Moala and Falanico, and all these guys just filled in all the gaps on the front seven. They came to ball. Ended up with 3 sacks tonight, like that. Pretty damn good against the Pac-12 offensive line that is legitimately a good offensive line. Yes, they lost a couple guys to the NFL, but that's been the strength of Wazoo for quite a few years now. So seeing our front seven compete with a Pac-12 offensive line and get to the quarterback and make his life difficult incredible. I could not speak higher about the defensive performance. They put up 7 points, which is more than Paul Petrino's offense put up in any game in his tenure playing the Cougs. So shots fired there, but the defense was otherworldly. This honestly, looking at this top half of the Big Sky, no question to me, Idaho's defense has turned the corner finally. So that's the big thing I wanted to highlight. Just the front seven just being phenomenal there. The other thing, Anthony Woods was a revelation. 9 carries for 52 yards.
Can I slow you down before we get the offensive part? Because there's a couple other guys I want to hit on real quick.
Go for it.
So Leo Tamba, converted linebacker, he's an edge rusher now. He picked up a sack and a half. Giuliano Falanico, he's our other edge rusher. He picks up a sack. Paul Mulala, the main 3 linebackers of Paul Mulala, Mujibu Rufai, and like Dallas reference, Favai, all absolutely looked like they belonged. Favai led the way in terms of tackles. He had 11 total, 7 solo, 4 assisted. But between linebackers, also look, the front 7, including our line, which notable in a Pac-12 game is that our line is not quite as physically imposing just in terms of statures, just in terms of space the dudes take up, as it has been the last couple of years. But look, WSU, even with how they spread the field for the air raid, the whole point in terms of rushing now is to have they spread the team out, so it's harder to stack the line as much. It's not like WSU was that imposing. They did average 5.7 yards per rush, but some of that didn't feel like a 5.7 yards per rush for like in a Montana game where they're just steadily pounding. WSU had a couple, they did have some spurts. They're able to run successfully, but look, they only scored 24 total points. They certainly were not abusing Idaho. So that 5.7, that might be on paper, that looked rough, but overall, I'm real happy with how the front 7 did in terms of stopping WSU on the ground, which, look, WSU, that is a point of emphasis, even though it's air raid for them, like their modifications, they do want to run the ball a little bit more like a Mike Leach team typically would. They were not able to do it that effectively. To me, nowhere near as effectively as 5.7 yards per rush would suggest. And again, this is another way where I see this game. And if this is the defense we're going to have this year, I'm probably adjusting the projected win totals from our first episode, because suddenly some of the questionable teams I feel fine about.
Couldn't agree more. I actually tweeted about it. Outside of next week, I still, unfortunately, I'm sorry to throw water on the parade. I still don't think they go and beat Indiana next week.
We have the Tuesday episode. You can throw water on the parade.
I will, but I just mean, so there's that to look forward to. There's still Montana on the schedule, but all the rest of those ones that we were talking about, there's close, but maybe they're just not quite there. Seeing a performance like that where they took it to a Pac-12 school. Yes, offensively, there's definitely still some extra gears to find there, but you couldn't be more confident in this performance, and I think that's the big takeaway everybody needs to have is, yes, they lost, but they lost in the most convincing fashion possible. So the other thing I had wanted to bring up just offensively, Anthony Woods looked phenomenal. Anthony Woods, he got as many carries as Roschon, which was
freshman running back Anthony Woods, who, if you're new, if you haven't been paying attention to our episodes, he's a new recruit running back. Take it away.
Thank you. He's a true freshman, I believe. So
yes,
Roschon Johnson, 9 carries, 19 yards. And everybody knows how good Roschon is going to be, how good Roschon has been, and the numbers he's probably going to put up this year. Anthony Woods, 9 carries for 52 yards. Long of 16. So he did bust a good one there, but every time he got the ball, he looked electric. He looked like he belonged on Wazoo's team, not on Idaho's team. And it's one of the things that we've heard about for years about all of Paul Petrino's vaunted recruiting classes, but then guys get here and it's the same 4-win bullshit that it's been for years at this point. I don't know what is different other than maybe the coaching staff knows what the hell they're doing this time. Seeing a true freshman walk into a Pac-12 game and look like he might be the best running back on the field, or if not, he's the second best right behind Nakia Watson, who again has a whole lot more experience than he does. unbelievable. He stood out like a sore thumb. That kid is going to be the future of this position for Idaho.
Yeah, Anthony was. This isn't meant as a slight to Roschon Johnson at all, because Roschon Johnson's a good running back, especially he's a good Big Sky running back. Anthony Woods was the most impressive rusher for Idaho. It wasn't really close. The touch distribution, Woods didn't really get as many touches until later into the second half. But no, Woods, look, I saw the scrimmage. I saw Woods bust out a 40-yard touchdown run. Heck, my mom, who's not a football fan, was watching the game with me because I couldn't go due to the smoke. And she's not a huge football fan. She doesn't know the names. She says, like, hey, is that one of those fast guys we saw? And yes, it was. She's talking about Anthony Woods, who looked great in the scrimmage and now against Pac-12 teams looks good. No way, absolutely no way that you're going to tell me Anthony Woods is not going to be an impact player this season in a Big Sky season. We're talking about things that went well or went right. Man, I want to look at our receivers for a second. This is with the understanding that I'm not going to talk about the line yet because that's probably in the other side of the discussion. But we had some wide receivers step up who maybe aren't the household names you'd think. I mean, look, Terez Traynor had a moment where he looked like an all league level receiver, but he finished with 2 catches of 29 yards. Hayden Hatton, his impact, honestly, I would never have guessed that he only had 14 total receiving yards, 5 catches for 14 yards. It seemed like more, but whatever. Jermaine Jackson, slot receiver, coming off that blown knee. Man, he looks like a target that Giovanni Mccoy likes. 5 receptions for 110 yards. But then Jordan Dwyer had a couple huge catches in the fourth quarter. Two on the scoring drive. One saved us first down, or he just got drilled in the lower back. And me as an aging former athlete, I saw that drill in the lower back and thought, Jesus, that was rough. And then like a minute later, he's catching a touchdown. Jordan Dwyer, 3 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown. Which is to say, look, if those 2 guys are stepping up, we already know Hayden Hatton's good. We already know Terez Traynor's good. Jordan Dwyer is another impact freshman there's true freshman. There's no way that dude's going to redshirt. He's going to be just like Anthony Woods. He's going to be way too impactful in a Big Sky season to play 4 games and put on the shelf. But the skill position is running back receiver, which we already thought were kind of deep. They're deeper. I saw that. Look, Montana beat the shit out of Northwestern State. Well, this Saturday, I would take Idaho skill position players over the Montana skill position players based off what I saw today.
Absolutely not a question. The thing that the stat line doesn't really show about Jackson and Dwyer, they both had multiple plays where they would have been open for an easy touchdown. We saw Mccoy uncork one tonight. McCoy's got the arm. If he could have just a little bit more time in the pocket, this would have been a different ball game. And Dwyer and Jackson would have either had multiple touchdowns apiece or both of them would have crossed into 100 yards because there were definitely times that they outran the Coug secondary. It just didn't have the time to get the ball there. I am trying not to be like Martin Heemstra Sunshine and Rainbows right here, but holy shit, guys. This might finally be the year that Idaho knocks off a handful of teams in the Big Sky, and we're talking playoffs at the end of the year. This team, if they come out with an effort like this every night, this is a team that is going to be very hard for a lot of other teams to even compete with, much less beat.
The next thing that went right is for Giovanni Mccoy. He started, which we talked about on the episode last week. Giovanni Mccoy was going to be the starter. He came out. And we're going to get the offensive line in a second, but relative to being under incredible duress the entire night, relative to not having a ton of time to really work, Giovanni McCoy's final stat line, 21 completions, 32 attempts, 212 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks. Longest pass was 42 yards. That went to Jermaine Jackson. Look, if you were concerned about the Idaho quarterback position because there wasn't a single guy who seemed to emerge until a little bit later in camp, I know Eck chose to not say anything. It was pretty much the last 2 weeks. Every tip we had is that, no, this is not a contest. It's McCoy. It's McCoy. It's McCoy. It's over. He answered the call, man. He's not as mobile. He's not close to as mobile as a guy like CJ. McCoy can extend plays a little bit, but he's certainly not. He's not a running quarterback. He's not going to be beating teams with his legs as any sort of main contribution. He's a thrower, and dude's got an arm. He's gonna make some mistakes. He's a redshirt freshman. He forced 2 picks. He threw a pick at the very end. We didn't have that much time. I'm not that upset about. Look, Jason Eck, I actually talked with my older brother about this. Jason Eck went for it on 4th down a lot throughout this game. It was clear he was playing to win. It was clear that the ethos of this team was, look, if we're going to beat WSU, we need some things to break right, and we're going to force some things to either break our way or break towards WSU. You got to think that probably rubbed off a little bit on the players too, mostly in a positive way, but a little bit in a couple forced plays. Giovanni Mccoy's first pick to me was his worst in that he looked like he clearly had enough space, just hold the ball, run for 1st down, live to see another day. Tried to thread the needle and got picked off. But, WSU picks off. WSU forces turnovers. It's a good defense. So that's going to happen as a redshirt freshman. But overall, no questions about arm strength. Everyone knows with Giovanni Mccoy, look, you can drill him. He's going to get right back up. This is another dude who's got a lot of fight in him. You can understand why he was kind of a favorite. Everything we'd heard, he was a favorite of the players to be a starter for exactly that reason. Is kind of the leadership that fitting in with the idea of this team needs to become scrappier, and McCoy certainly is that. But he's not just scrappy. Dude's got an arm. Now we're gonna have to live through some redshirt freshman mistakes. But look, I saw McCoy play, and he easily has the talent to be a solid Big Sky quarterback. So I'm suddenly not concerned about quarterback really at all.
Same. I was very impressed with McCoy. 21 of 32. Again, he had the 2 picks, but you really can't hold the last one against him. Like, realistically, that drive is going to either end in a touchdown or an interception. Like that's how the end of that game was going to go. And unfortunately it broke Wazoo's way at the final end, and you can't do much about that. But
can I actually ask you a different thing about McCoy just because you were at the game? Same baseline is, I wish that we could have a stat breakdown of times when McCoy had enough time and times where he just instantly was running for his life. What I saw on TV is when he had a second, he looked good. And when he didn't have a second, he looked like you would expect the Big Sky quarterback with a collapsing line to look against WSU. But you were at the game. Mm-hmm. What was your experience of that differentiation between has time, no time?
I remember only 2 passes that he had time. And I remember distinctly thinking, oh yeah, he's going through progressions. Like he is doing exactly what you would want a quarterback to do. He is doing the right thing. He made the right decision. He uncorked one and made a large completion. Every other play, it felt like he was already, by the time he has the ball in his hands and is looking at his first receiver, there are 2 linemen coming right around the tackles to light him up. And yes, he definitely took a couple shots, but for the most part, he'd slip out, he'd find the emergency release and just dump it off. And that's what you have to be able to do to succeed when you are, unfortunately, you are outgunned by a defense that is coming to kill you, and you have an offensive line that just doesn't have the depth to survive against a Pac-12 team like that. So no, very, very impressive. The one thing that was very weird to me was in the 3rd quarter, they brought out CJ Jordan for 1 play, and it felt like the snap was bad. He kind of picked it up off the turf, and then they sacked him, and then they just sent him back out. It felt like kind of like the Borisch thing from last year of Borisch comes out.
I can answer that middle. You know why it felt that way?
Because it was. Yeah,
CJ Jordan's doing the Borisch stuff. So if Idaho shifts to run heavy, CJ becomes the quarterback. But look, I think X saw like, Jesus Christ, it doesn't matter if that was a good snap. There was no time. There was no way run heavy was going to work with CJ against WSU. But yeah, that's what you saw. It looked like they said like, hey, let's try the run heavy thing for like 1 second, then bailed. That's because that's what happened.
I was hoping that you had a better experience of it. Martin and I were sitting in the stands and like, wait a minute, is CJ in? Wait a minute, what the hell just happened? And then, he trots off the field and Gio comes back on and didn't really quite grasp what was going on so thank you for that. So that is the one intriguing thing. Is that going to be, was that just hey, we're going to try this to see if we can get the offense going? Because at that point, nothing had really worked other than that 15-yard penalty that bailed out the drive and then the large completion to Jackson. Maybe that was just, hey, we're going to try to spark something, and then one play in realized it was a mistake. Maybe this is what they're going to try to do, run CJ out for a series and have him run the ball a little bit, get the distribution a little bit closer to the, 55-45 that Eck was talking about. I forgot the specific number he'd mentioned earlier, but that was about the one thing from the quarterback position I didn't quite grasp. But to Eck's credit, he did catch on very quickly that this was not going to work out, or Coach Slice as well. He's technically the play caller. They picked that up very quickly that this was not going to be a recipe for success, and unfortunately didn't get the offense clicking again until midway through the fourth quarter, and it was too late. But when Gio did have time, to loop all of this back, when Gio did have time, the offense looked good. It was just he just didn't have time on really more than 2 or 3 plays.
Yeah, want to hit on a couple other things that went right quick. Penalty-wise, there was only one run really where penalties hurt Idaho's, in that it was in the fourth quarter. It was honestly what led into the Dallas alluded to a 4th and 9 where Idaho went for it, and Giovanni got sacked immediately. A false start pushed that back from 4th and 4 to 4th and 9. But penalty-wise, I believe Idaho 35 yards total penalties in the game. I believe 6. It was 6. Oh my, stat check. 7 penalties for 50 yards, so probably a little bit more than you would like. But honestly, a handful of those penalties did come in the fourth quarter, which of course that sucks. Timeliness wise, that part sucks. But relative to a lot of new starters, Idaho, this game was not Idaho shooting itself in the foot with personal fouls and dumb shit penalties for the most part. We did have one personal foul that negated a WSU holding penalty, which that did hurt. But overall, Idaho was in this because we took what we could, and we did not give up big plays on special teams. We didn't give up no block punts, stuff like that. We didn't give up big plays overhead, like I said, Cam Ward's longest completion, 19 yards. And for the most part, this team didn't shoot itself in the foot with penalties and losing field position. So to me, there's not a whole lot to explain there. That went well. Thing that you might want to piggyback on. Look, this is Coach Eck was in his first live performance. And look, the coaching staff takes their cues from Eck. And man, Jason Eck looked like he was having fun on the sidelines. He was getting into the game. He was trying to get the crowd pumped up. You could see him let loose in his way a little bit more, and it was fun seeing him get animated, but not in like the Paul Petrino screaming at people because they fucked something up. Like getting people jacked up on the sidelines was more of what Eck was doing. And look, again, his first performance, the end result could not have been better. But then in his role of what people are going to see, he couldn't have personally been better in my mind. Really, there was one kind of questionable play call, like that 4th and 9 where Giovanni got sacked. I think that should have been a punt. But otherwise, look, the way this game was drawn up, and Eck's not the only one involved in this, of course, but he's the head coach, so that's who we're going to focus on. The defensive strategy that Borisch came up with and that Eck's clearly involved with, sound. It was the strategy we needed if we were going to be competitive, and we were. Offensively, we did what we could. We're going to get to what needs to get better soon. But relative to the limitations Idaho has, relative to look, Eck has had one, this is first year. Eck's delivering. This is not, we've left the world of, hey, are the optics good or not? No, concrete. We had a great team performance and the dude on the sidelines representing himself and the university the way we would want him to.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I do want to give the backstory here to this 4th and 9, just so everybody knows what happened here. Idaho gets the ball at Wazoo's 48 after Favai forced the 3rd fumble of the game from Wazoo. Andre Carter goes 4 yards, 2nd and 6. Giovanni gets sacked. It's 3rd and 15. False start turns it into 3rd and 20. The draw play with Anthony Woods ends up getting down to 4th and 4, and that's when they're going for it. They're going for it on 4th and 4, and it was absolutely the right call at the time. You just had the best play you've had since the first quarter offensively. It was time to go, and unfortunately, Idaho had yet another false start penalty. That was the one issue with the penalties. Quite a handful of false starts tonight. But again, young offensive line without a whole lot of depth. This is the thing that's going to just kind of happen until this group has gotten enough experience to get past these kind of rookie mistakes. And so I think that's where some of that came from, is they're absolutely going for it on 4th and 4. The false start happens without taking a timeout, without taking a ton of time. They lined up, executed the play, and unfortunately Gio got sacked for 14 yards right after that, and it led to the final touchdown from Wazoo, and here it goes. But I wanted to make sure that everybody knows the reason Eck went for it on 4th and 9. If this was like just randomly, it was 4th and 9 and he chose to go for it, we might harp on it a little bit harder, but it was 4th and 4. That was absolutely the right time to go for it. 4th and 9 might not have been the time to go for it, but when it was 4th and 4, it was make the decision, and it was what it was. Outside of that,
WSU then ended up scoring. Only context I'm adding to what you're saying is, look, again, he was clearly playing to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
He went for it on 4th down 7 times, got 3 of them. The gamble here, other than the obvious 4th and 9, which is kind of a long way to gamble, is it surrendered pretty bad field position, and then WSU scored right away.
Mm-hmm. But
in terms of, I'll throw it back to you. That was really the only moment where in my head I was like, okay, I'm guessing. I don't think that was the right call. Otherwise, no, dude, everything seemed fine.
Exactly. And that's the whole point I was trying to get to here. I apologize. It's 1 a.m. That's the one decision that we have that we could nitpick. It did not feel like that over the last, realistically 9 years, but especially the last 4, it has not felt like we could come out of there and say, holy shit, this is a really well-coached team. Yeah, you'd like to have one back, but you didn't come out of the games thinking, wow, Idaho is just maximizing all of their talent because their coaching staff knows what they're doing. It's not something you could say a whole lot before. Definitely feels like that now, which does make the issues feel much larger. I'm terrified about the offensive line. Like, let's get into it. The offensive line is absolutely the weakest point on this team right now. There's just not enough bodies is the thing. We're talking 3 freshmen in the 2 deep, 3 true freshmen in the 2 deep. Like, there's just not a bunch of bodies here, not a bunch of experience here. It stood out really, really badly against Wazoo. Again, that's a very extreme team to be playing. Indiana's defensive line is not going to be quite the same because Indiana sucks. When you get down to the FCS, it's not going to be quite the same, but I think that was the big thing that stood out. I can't think of anything else that was terribly negative other than there was really no time, no real good push for a running back to follow behind. It was just kind of a struggle in that aspect.
Yeah, we have to get to that, which is, if we're looking at areas that are questions, areas of concern, the offensive line is the area at which everything is going to center, because it's not. Look, Eck has been open about this. He's built strong offensive lines, place like South Dakota State. By the way, South Dakota State almost beat Iowa today. Idaho just hasn't had time to build the guys that Eck built at South Dakota State. But any statistical metric that you look at that people think of as indicative of offensive line health, well, let's go through. Idaho rushed 34 times for a net of 62 yards. They gained 103 total, but lost 41 yards between sacks and rushes for negative yards. Average yards per rush, 1.8. Obviously, that part's not good enough. Giovanni Mccoy gets sacked 7 times. Never mind how many Giovanni probably averted just by scrambling for his life. He didn't turn that more. Yeah, he didn't turn that into a ton of positive yards. A lot of it was just getting away, just getting a pass off, sometimes incomplete, sometimes for a couple yards. But like those are the main things you'd look at as your evidence for how the offensive line held up. And yeah, the offensive line, we just, the other thing, Idaho led time of possession in this game, and it still felt like the offensive line was not able to keep our defense off the field quite enough relative to what our defense was dealing with in, air raid Cam Ward. But that's really that's the glaring thing that, look, it like I said, it probably doesn't look as bad against, well, it's not going to look as bad against the Drake. It's not going to look as bad against the NAU, but is it, look, Montana is going to watch this tape, and their front seven's going to begin licking their chops. Sac State's going to watch this tape, and they're going to think, okay, well, we know what to do. Realistically, every team right now is going to watch this tape, and they're going to know that defensively the strategy against Idaho is bring the heat. Make the offensive line hold enough, and make the redshirt freshman quarterback make the right reads.
Exactly. And that's, I mean, again, we're going to have our games, not to harp on Giovanni or CJ or Ridge Dutchakal or Jack Lane or Jabore Gibbs or whichever quarterback is going to come in. There are going to be games where the quarterbacks are going to make mistakes, and we're going to have to talk about them in a post game of like, well, a couple really awful picks tonight. That's going to happen. It's what happens when you have guys that are, everyone's young except for Jabore, and he hasn't really played in about 3 years. So keep that in mind. But outside of, again, McCoy had a couple interceptions. You can go either way on how serious they were. The offensive line struggled. Brian, was there anything else that stuck out to you as a sore spot or a place that needs a lot of improvement?
No, like realistically, no. Look, the play calling was pretty much, it's honestly it's in line with what Eck had said in his press conference, is he doesn't decide a game plan before evaluating the talent. At South Dakota State, his last season there, 58% of the time they ran, 42% of the time they passed. When he's spoken interviews, he emphasizes the run. And that's the kind of thing where you would think, okay, well, maybe the split's going to be 60-40 or something like that. Well, no, it was damn near 50-50, 32 passes, 34 rushes. That's responding to the game being played the way he needs to respond. It's being fluid with your understanding of strategy. It's exactly what we need. No, man, it's just the issue with your offensive line being the cause for concern is it just impacts the other positions. It impacts, does the quarterback have enough time to hit skill position players? Do the running backs, whether they're good or not, look, that they need space. A good running back is going to take that space and do a ton with it. But if the space isn't there, what the hell are you supposed to do, especially against a Pac-12 team? You got no space. There's nowhere to go. Like, we talked about Rashawn Johnson. This was certainly not Rashawn Johnson's best game. 9 rushes for 19 yards along with 5. But like, Rashawn Johnson wasn't making mistakes. He didn't rush for 19 yards on 9 rushes because he was making the wrong reads or something like that. No, Rashawn Johnson was fine. He's going to be fine especially come FCS season for us. It's just no space. So I don't know how that offensive line situation fixes itself this year. And that to me is the clear limiting factor right now for Idaho is, we have an offensive line that I think is going to be okay, is going to be fine against the like shitty to mid Big Sky teams for sure. Because look, we are down a starter, which means we're playing one of our second stringers more than we would have otherwise. And we fought through against WSU. Now, like, you're not going to tell me NAU is a team we can't fight through. But look, the ceiling of expected performance of this team, if everything clicks, is contending for a playoff spot. That is absolutely still on the table for this team. And based off, honestly, what the Big Sky looked like week 1, which we'll probably talk about more on our weekly show, there's no reason to think Idaho is outclassed by virtually anyone except maybe Montana and Montana State right now in the Big Sky. But for Idaho to get to the playoffs, man, that line's going to have to either have a historically healthy season, or some young guys are going to have to grow up very fast.
No, you kind of mentioned it. Looking over the schedule now, I have Indiana circled and Montana circled. Other than that, the games that were kind of are up in the air is the Northern Arizonas, the Portland States, even Sacramento State, UC Davis. We kind of debated back and forth. After a performance like this, I feel completely different about how the rest of the season is going to go. I just the big wrap up for me here. You think back to 2016 when Idaho last played Wazoo. Idaho won a bowl game that year. Wazoo won 8 games that year. They lost 56-6. They got absolutely skull fucked by Wazoo. That did not happen this year. This Wazoo team is probably not going to fall on their face because before anybody says, well, maybe Wazoo just sucks this year. In 2016, Wazoo lost to Eastern. Yes, Eastern was number 14 in the FCS at the time. Yes, they had Cooper Kupp on his Walter Payton Man of the Year, or excuse me, Walter Payton Award campaign. They were a wagon. But Wazoo has a tendency to do this. They play poorly against an FCS school and then have a decent year. But the last time we played them, we won a bowl game that year, and we lost that game by fucking 50. This time, we punched them right back. We were in it until the final seconds, and honestly, if that linebacker, Dayon Hensley, doesn't make the incredible interception that he did at the end of the game, we could be talking about this game completely differently. We legitimately could be talking about a Vandal victory. That's the context here. Idaho hung with a Pac-12 opponent to the point that if one other play goes their way, there was a legitimate chance that we're talking about a victory tonight. And that is a victory in itself. The fact that Idaho hung with the toughest opponent on this year's schedule.
Oh yeah. Look, the game was in doubt until there were 12 seconds left on the game clock. In that final drive, like I was watching the game with my brother in Coeur d'Alene. I was seriously talking like, dude, you think if we score here, think X can go for 2 for the win? Which honestly, hot take, yes. That would have been the call. That would have been the call because overtime you would have you'd have to assume WSU has the advantage. No, you got and if that was the case, you got to do it. If you lose, who gives a shit? It's a Pac-12 team. You're supposed to lose.
Yep.
But look, we need to do the Hughes River ad read, Dallas. I want to do. We didn't really plan this, dudes. It's almost 1 o'clock. I think we should do game ball. Both of us, offense, defense. But before we get there, give you a couple seconds to think it over. This, around the bar, brought to us by Hughes River Expedition. If you're looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Venture into the largest protected wilderness in the continental U.S., located right here in the great state of Idaho. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River, no return, the Salmon River Canyons, the Selway, or you can even check out special trips like the one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, take in the history along the river, and fish some of the most remote stretches of river in the country. You just bring it close. Let HRE handle the rest. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal owned and operated since 1976 and ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. What are you waiting for? Find out what it's like to grab paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 800-262-1882 or check them out at hughesriver.com. Dallas, game ball offense.
Offense for me, Jermaine Jackson. I thought he looked incredible. 5 receptions for 110 yards. I thought he was the best player on the offense tonight. And I think if Vonnie had a couple more seconds on a couple more plays, we could be talking about Jermaine having 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was that good tonight. Looked like he absolutely is back from that knee injury.
You're right. That's who should get the game ball. My co-offensive game ball. I'm going to go Giovanni Mccoy. Because, look, again, the stat line, it's not like the most impressive stat line in the history of quarterbacks. But relative to the pressure he faced on every single snap in this game, if you were at all questionable about the quarterback, take Xanax. We are going to be fine. Idaho has the quarterback situation is taken care of. Quarterback room is super young, like you talked about, Dallas. So it's a second string. To our knowledge, second string is true freshman Jack Lane. Third string is third-year freshman CJ Jordan. So we're going to see a lot of freshmen playing quarterback. So look, you're going to have to deal with some rookie mistakes. But relative to Giovanni kept us in the game. Giovanni made the plays he could. He he answered the questions I think a lot of people had when you don't have a quarterback named 2 weeks before the season starts. So I'm real stoked with the effort we had out of him. You're right, Jermaine Jackson easily had the offensive MVP, but to get something else. Giovanni Mccoy is the guy who probably had the biggest questions, other than the offensive line as a whole. Biggest question mark on the offense was, how's Giovanni going to handle WSU's pressure? He did pretty damn well. Game ball defense.
I'm going to let you take the obvious one. I'm going to go with Matthias Bertram. He forced both of the fumbles in the first quarter, second on the team in tackles. He seemed like he was everywhere. And that was honestly something we haven't talked about with the secondary. Felt a lot different than the coaching style of Bresky. It felt like anytime a receiver caught a ball, there were 4 Vandals around him immediately. It was incredible. I thought Bertram had an incredible game. I know Marcus Harris is the one that picked up the touchdown, but Bertram's the one who forced the fumble and the one before that.
See, to me, it isn't brain dead of who the obvious one would be, because look, Favai was all over the place, 11 tackles, but I'm going to go Marcus Harris. First off, again, we already covered it. Secondary looked good, very good relative to what we're used to out of Idaho, and against probably the best receiving core they're going to see the entire year. Second, that touchdown fumble, the fumble recovery that he picked up, returned for a touchdown. Man, was that huge. Without that touchdown, look, Idaho's trailing at the end of the third quarter without that touchdown, 17-3. And I bet the attitude a lot of Vandals probably have about this game is still, look, we're kind of keeping in here, but like we're not doing that much offensively. That touchdown was a shot in the arm that carried the momentum to me of this team, and gave some momentum to this fan base a lot more than one single touchdown might typically have been. Anytime you get a defensive touchdown, that's a big deal. And this team last year, especially in Big Sky play, we weren't a team getting touched where the defense was picking up touchdowns. Hell, the team picked off 2 total passes in Big Sky play last year. So having the defense contribute both in forced turnovers, like you talked about already, and in taking one of those to the house early, where, that was the key to the game for me, is Idaho can't get punched in the mouth early. No, we did the mouth punching early, and it was Marcus Harris picking up that strip from Matthias Bertram, taking it to the house. So yeah, Marcus Harris gets my game ball.
That was my brain dead answer. I do want to throw out Favai had a great game. Favai is going to have a great game every single week, guys. Like, let's be real here. He's probably going to lead the team in tackles. He's probably going to have double-digit tackles. He had 11 tonight. He's going to have a great game just about every single time they go out there on the field.
Yeah, he will. And we could recircle this conversation easily, start talking about their guys. Giuliano Falanico, clearly, like he was good. Leo Tamba, good, and in that shifting to the edge rusher spot. Early on, Paul Moala really was the name. Yeah, Paul Moala, especially early, man. He was the guy that seemed like he was just everywhere to start off with. So I think if you had any questions about how his Achilles are doing, well, WSU would tell you his Achilles are doing fine based off how that went tonight. So look, we got our game balls. I will be doing a Big Sky power ranking podcast tomorrow. It'll probably be a solo venture to go through how the conference is doing. But hey, if you like what we're doing, both covering Vandals, and if you like the idea of getting to know a little bit of how the rest of the conference did, tune in tomorrow. And also support us at patreon.com/Tubs the Club, aka #OnlyTubs. Dallas, I guess last question I have before we call it a night. Just tell me, environment in the Vandal section. I know through the ticket office we sold out. Idaho sold out its allotted tickets for its section. How was it actually sitting there?
It was electric, actually. The people that were there showed up to party. It was actually a great time. It was absolutely packed. We had a bunch of drunk underage morons in front of us trying to stick about 7 people into 3 seats because apparently they couldn't read their tickets. I don't know. I didn't really care to find out. So that was a little interesting, but I mean, it was jam packed. It was loud. It was energetic. It was chaotic. It was exactly what it needed to be.
That sounds so goddamn good. With how last season the Kibbe Dome was a graveyard. This is one of the things that was just on, that's just a little bit at stake with, to me, how fragile this fan base could be with how the last goddamn decade went. Ekin Co did everything right before the season started. Look, the athletic administration, we shit on them for hiring Zach Kloss and not firing him because we should. But the athletic administration, with their organization of like social media accounts and hyping up the season, they're doing everything right too. So look, we're doing everything off the field right, but we don't get that matched on the field, eventually none of that stuff matters. We did. And so it's great to hear the fans showed up, and were treated to a rewarding performance, telling them, yeah, now get your ass to Kibby Dome for the Drake game. Look, we're probably not going to have a ton of people traveling for the Indiana game. I'm sure the watch parties are going to be a little bit more happening this time around. But if you were looking for something to happen to make sure that dome come home opener against Drake doesn't feel like the graveyard like it felt like the last couple seasons, and feels all we need is that place at 2/3 capacity, and that's a kick-ass environment.
Absolutely. And I beg you guys, 2 weeks from now, please, if you can make it to Moscow, get there for that game, because holy shit, we're going to punch those guys' heads off. Drake, for those that don't know, Drake is not particularly good, and they play in a conference that doesn't have athletic scholarships. If Idaho plays like they did tonight, it is going to be a bloodbath, a Simon Fraser level bloodbath, but this time it'll be against a team that's, in our conference.
No, and it'll be fun. Like, first off, it's going to be needed because we start off the season with 2 bye games, which just sucks. But if we play like we did against WSU against Indiana, even if it's a loss, man, 2 competitive Power 5 losses for an Idaho team, people are going to be stoked for that first game. So yeah, no, dude, get your tickets. If Jason Eck and co are doing everything they can, we have to reward them as a fan base. Buy your tickets. If you can make it to the game, you got to get to the game. You're
going to love it,
man. Yeah, no, dude, you're going to love it. But again, you should. Look, another thing before we close off, get your ass to a game. Rob Borisch isn't going to be in Moscow very long, guys. I didn't
want to have to talk about that tonight, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's not here next year.
Yeah, dude. No, defensively, this is and look, Rob Borisch has the keys to the kingdom on the defensive side. Strategically, man, that was great. Especially the secondary, man. Isn't it goddamn wild that his gamble the defensive talent in the secondary with some converted wide receivers is going to be enough. It's just schematic stuff, and here's what we're going to do and how it's going to fix it. That gamble worked against WSU. So, yeah, dude, we have a kick-ass coaching staff, especially the assistants. They're not all going to be here forever. Get to the dome, enjoy it while it lasts.
Absolutely, especially for anybody that stays up watching Pac-12 after dark like I am prone to do. A month from now when Wazoo and USC or Oregon State or Utah or some just random team that they're all of a sudden it's a 50-45 game. Remember that Idaho's defense held this team to 24 points. And yes, it was by forcing 3 turnovers, but Idaho held this team to 24 points. There will absolutely come a game in October or maybe the early November where Wazoo's going to put up 50 and it's going to look like they did it without even thinking about it. Just second nature, scored 50 like it was absolutely nothing. Do not forget that. Idaho held them to 24 points.
Okay, it's super fucking late. We're going to call it quits. And I know I just said we only had one more thing, but I lied. We have one more thing. Dallas, you have to – I'm drawing a blank because it's pretty goddamn late. The Oregon State OC.
Former Brian Lindgren?
Brian Lindgren. Yeah, bringing that up because in case you guys are curious, if Boise State gets their ass kicked, we'll give you a quick Boise State update. Vandal Brian Lindgren's offense, Oregon State, boy, did he not have too much trouble against Boise State. Oregon State, the same night that Idaho hangs with WSU until the last damn play, Boise State trailed Oregon State essentially the entire goddamn game. Went so bad with their quarterbacks that Andy Avalos says, like, yeah, we have a QB competition starting next practice. That's how shitty things were in Boise. Boise State losing 34-17.
For anybody that doesn't follow Boise State terribly much, this after he talked all about how much better their program was going to be this year, how their culture was going back to the way of Boise State from 10 years ago, and Hank Bachmeier was he had figured it out, and he was going to be this incredible quarterback, and they were going to shock the world and go back to what Boise State still thinks that they are.
Well, look, Hank Bachmeier,
call.
he was fantastic. If your comparison is Dylan McCaffrey, 4 of 8 for 30 yards, 2 picks. Well, that should be 6 of 8, right? Picks are completions. He should have been 6 of 8. That's 2 completions. But ESPN, what the hell is with your stat check? That's bullshit. But yeah, great night in Moscow, shitty night in Boise. Hard to get much better than that. Dallas, let's just get the hell out of here. We're going to be back pretty quick. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Share the shit out of this. We'll be back pretty soon. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.